Felt earthquake, May 24, 2026. According to the earthquake unit of Jamaica, this was a magnitude 3.2. Now, where this is located is within the region of the Swift River. Now, before I go further, I just want to mention this. It doesn't matter if the earthquake is a light one. Keep in mind that minor earthquakes can still result in weakness of the overall house or business or other physical infrastructure. So, with this being said, it's very important that you, especially if you reside within vicinity of Swift River, Port Bay, just to mention that you make sure you are linking up with the relevant professionals, building professionals, architects, engineers, the relevant agencies to assist you with reinforcing and strengthening your overall properties. Now, with this being said, so here is the location of this specific earthquake. This is a Google imagery, and this location is in reference to the approximate 9 kilometer south distance from Hope Bay. So you can see Swift River. Now, if you look at it in isolation, it's not anything of great deal. Pay attention to the focal depth, however. Now, this is an accumulation of the other epicenters as I have been plotting them since 2023. Based on the math, this is approximately 6 earthquakes that would have been recorded, felt, and this is within the vicinity of the Swift River watershed. Now, if you look at the focal depth, the general focal depth range from 6 to roughly 10 kilometers. There is an outlier of the 14 kilometer. That 14 kilometer is related to the magnitude 5.6 that occurred in 2023. Now, this imagery highlights those two earthquakes within the same era, Swift River watershed, that had a magnitude of 4 plus and the focal depth ranging from 5.6 to 7 kilometers. Now, when I combine the two, that is magnitudes 3 plus and the 4 plus within the Swift River watershed basin, there is now an accumulation of, let's say, between 6 and 8 felt earthquakes within this region alone. Now, this is where the interesting elements follow. Now, chief among these interesting elements is the reality now that if we are seeing between 6 and 8 felt earthquakes between a year period of 2023 and 2026, then that equates to an approximation of 2.6 felt earthquakes per year. If we then are to multiply this by 10 years, then what this is now indicating is this zone, Swift River watershed zone, would more than likely be experiencing earthquakes within a magnitude that will be felt at the range of 26. So it's 26 felt earthquakes that we can be saying that we'll be expected to feel within this zone itself. The reason why this is very relevant is because in the context now of whatever kind of plans relating to this zone or this area, this specific information has application to the development plans, the building code plans, just to say the least. Similar to that, you have to now take into consideration that all of this indicates that this is an active fault zone, or this zone has active fault zones, because of the simple reality that we cannot necessarily just pinpoint it and say it is one fault in of itself. The focal depth, where we can see the 5.6, we can see the 6, you can see the 8. All of that now is indicating that from a vertical point of view, you know what I mean, the different fault planes are being ruptured at varying depths. And essentially, these are shallow depths. And to have this being felt at 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers relative to the surface, it then now means that in terms of the energy, the energy that you're feeling within this zone can be relatively higher than if it were a case that it was in the 30 kilometers depth, to say the least. So even though magnitude is 3 plus or low 4, we're seeing here, just because of the mere fact that the focal depth is within, single digits, and then just barely touching the 10 kilometers, max 14 kilometers, means therefore that you residing within this location, or you deciding to invest in fixed properties within this location, you have to take into consideration that the energy amplification waves within this zone for those light magnitude earthquakes can still be, relatively higher than what it is that you would expect it to be if it was a case that it was a deeper seated fault rupture. Now, with that being highlighted as well, the multiple fault zones, as how I interpret it, that are rupturing now, are more than likely, a linkage, as in layman terms, So one specific section of the fault ruptures, let's just say this particular date, another section will more like a rupture. That's more like what is the pattern that we can take away as well from this. So all of this combines to highlight that this specific region of Swift River watershed is one that we still must be paying close attention to, where it comes to, being able to see what are the patterns of the seismics, and at the same time where it comes to the engineering aspects as well, because people need to live, people need to go about doing what it is that they want to do, development must occur. Then we must make sure that based on the data sets and based on the geology, based on the insight of the engineering, we are applying them as best as is possible, and we are not leaving any stone unturned, where, specific to finances or economics, to make sure that as best as possible, damage is being mitigated, reduction in productivity is being mitigated.